2025 marks Jim's 44th year as a live audio engineer. He has mixed front of house for artists including No Doubt, Gwen Stefani, Shania Twain, Journey, Van Halen, and many others. In 2013, he received the Parnelli Award for Front of House Mixer of the Year for his work with Journey and is a proud AES member based in Nashville. Not based in Nashville anymore. He just moved to Denver like yesterday. I'm sure he'll talk about that. Since 2021, Jim has been with Solotech as director of audio projects and now serves as brand influencer and recruitment representative. His experience also spans corporate gigs with clients like Starbucks, Microsoft, Nike, the NBA, the NFL, including career highlight mixing at the 2020 Super Bowl. I have questions about that, so I hope you guys do too. Jim has taught live audio at Belmont University, written for Live Sound International and Church Sound Magazine, and served as live audio director at NewSpring Church, where he trained staff and volunteers. So mixing live audio has been a dream come true for Jim, and mentoring the next generation remains his greatest passion. So we are extremely lucky to have Jim today. Please give a warm welcome to Jim Yakabuski.
Thank you, Nikki. Thanks, everyone. I can't hear any applause, so I'm just gonna imagine it in my mind. Hey, I see it. Fantastic. It's so nice to be here, everyone. This is such an honor to get to have this platform and to speak a little bit about audio. And it's my favorite thing to do, aside from actually mixing audio, is to speak about audio and to hopefully pass on some knowledge about some of the things that I've learned over my 44 years of doing this. And I'm going to share some of those today. Some of these tips and tricks are very fundamental. And I was thinking as I was getting ready to go on the air here today that you'll probably notice as you go to a lot of the concerts where some of the older bands are playing, the U2s, the Rolling Stones, those types of artists, that there's often an older engineer behind the console. And that's often because these guys and gals who have been mixing for decades have learned a thing or two, and some of the artists who have been around for as long as the audio engineers and longer will tend to trust people with those years of knowledge. When I came up and started mixing in 1981, everything was analog consoles and point source loudspeaker systems, great big piles of lumber in the air blocking the lighting because there was no LED walls back then. But it was tough. It was there was a lot of speakers pointing everywhere. The rooms were very unforgiving, and so as things have gotten easier, in my opinion, the speaker systems sound much better. The consoles allow you to do so much more. I still feel that a solid knowledge of fundamentals and just sort of tried and true processes is still an excellent way for a young engineer to mix like a pro. So I'm gonna run through some of these things. This is kind of a little series of tips and tricks that I'm going to call veteran secrets to help you mix front of house like a pro. So one of my biggest beliefs as a mix engineer that as I was coming up, I learned to be a very good system engineer. And I think back in the days when it wasn't such a segregated thing where there was a monitor engineer and an RF engineer and a front of house engineer and a system engineer, we all kind of did everything ourselves. Everyone had to learn how to tune their own sound system. So I teach every student I've ever taught to learn how to tune your own sound system to be a nice blank canvas for you to produce your work. If you can get your sound system to a place where this wonderful mix that you've created inside the console sounds the way it does in a great set of headphones or a great set of near-field speakers. That is the goal. If your canvas is messy, then it's hard to produce a work of art if you don't have a great place to start from. If your sound system is sonically unbalanced, your input gain, your EQ decisions, they're all going to be affected by this unbalanced, sonically unbalanced, and if the lows are much higher than the highs, or the highs are much brighter than the low end of the spectrum of the sound system, it affects every decision that you make when you reach for an EQ knob. One thing that I still make myself do this absolutely every time I do a show is after the let's say it's a one-off event that you're doing at a fair, or for an artist it's a private event, and you're working with a local vendor, and they say, okay, the sound system is yours, it's all good to go. The first thing I always do is run a blast of pink noise to the left array and then to the right array. And the first question in my mind is, does the left sound like the right? And it's actually crazy how much that's not the case, because very often somebody has missed plugging in an NL8 cable or an NL4 cable, or the bumper is maybe tilted up a couple extra degrees on the left or the right, which changes the overall sound of the array. So that's one of the things I always double check before I start making any kind of measurements or EQ decisions is, does the sound system sound the same in the center at the mix position before I even move on to subs or outer arrays, front fills, anything like that? Does the two main clusters that I'm going to be listening to, do they sound the same? And then one of the things that I am very passionate about with sound systems is the tilt, the low end tilt of sound systems. I find that, especially in the last, let's call it 15 years, maybe even as far back as 20 years, is systems have become very tilted. There's a lot of sub bass, a lot of upper bass, and it's just the way that the speaker manufacturers are making their presets. A lot of sound systems, without even having sub bass, they go down to 35 hertz. And then you add the subs onto that. And so before you even turn a kick drum up with let's say you start with a flat EQ, you've got all this low end in the sound system. So I know a couple of engineers who like a sound system very, very flat, and they'll actually get in there and start cutting that stuff out. Everyone has their own opinion on this, but my opinion is I like a very manageable low end, and then I like to add the roundness to the mix in my mix. I like to do that in the console. So I just like to advise, if a sound system is super, super bass heavy, maybe start by controlling that a little bit with the system engineer. Turn that down a little bit to begin with, and that, I think that'll help you a lot. Sub bass coverage and consistency, I think, is something that should be very much, you should give it your consideration before moving on to taking your measurements and starting to do your line check and your sound check. A lot of times there'll be a huge power alley in the center of the room. You move 15 feet over, you start walking away from front of house, and you find that your kick drum or your bass guitar completely disappears. There are a lot of tools available in sound systems, in control software, to spread the sub bass throughout the venue. I often work with the system engineers, with the vendor, or on tour with my system engineer, to try to even out the sub bass so that I'm mixing in a place that has a representation that's much more similar to what the whole audience is listening to. It's something I concentrate on a lot and really care about. I want to know that where I'm standing and mixing, 90% of the audience is hearing that same thing. Okay, I'm going to move on now to gain structure. This is kind of a mythical, legendary topic we all talk about. Some people understand it and can write encyclopedias about it. I understand it in a very practical way. I know that I want the input coming in from any instruments. Let's take a keyboard, because that's one of those instruments that can be kind of quiet sometimes and then can really hit you hard with like a really loud horn patch or something like that. But you want to have your nominal, let's say a nice full string patch from a keyboard. You want that coming into your console at a nice, like, and you want to set your preamp gain at a nice 0 analog level, or if you've got a digital console and your meters are set up that way, -18 digital level. You want to get that kind of level set, and then have enough room so that if a really loud patch comes up, it hits the meter a little harder, but you're not getting into red and getting into distortion and clipping. Setting those levels are very important because each one of those inputs are going to end up joining and summing at the master bus. And if you pay attention to each one of these inputs and give attention and care to the input level that you set, you're going to have a much more successful output summing level at the end. Not only does it matter at the output, it also matters all the way through the signal path. If you pay attention and get a nice consistent input set, your gates operate more effectively. They open much more effectively when they should. When you send level to, let's say, a reverb or a delay unit, it sort of arrives at the reverb or the delay at the level that unit is looking to receive, and sends back a 0 dB or a -18 dB return level. It all kind of works in tandem if you start off with a good level in the beginning. If you build a mix with gain that's not set well, you'll find yourself maybe you're not getting enough level off of an input, so you're cranking up the gain to try and make it sound better, but it's a noisy input. So now you're amplifying noise, or you're not paying enough attention and you're getting keyboards that are slamming into the red and you're getting distortion. That's all getting passed on down the line. So gain structure is something that we all talk about, but it really is important to get that right. Your compressors as well, when you are setting your compressors on your channels, it's really important. If you want to just have a little light compression across the board, setting your preamp gain correctly will, your compressors will be much happier for it. Next point I want to talk about is probably the one thing that I care very much about, and I find a lot of mistakes are made in this area, and that is the combining of similar inputs. Let's use the example of a inside kick drum and an outside kick drum, like a Beta 91, a Beta 52, or a bass DI and a bass microphone. Anything that's, say, two microphones on the same instrument, or a lot of times I will use a DI directly off the bass guitar and maybe one at the end of their pedal board that has all their effects and stuff. When you combine these two things, very often, let's take the example of the two kick drum mics. So now you have one that's sitting on the pillow inside the kick drum, and you got the other one that's, 6 or 9 inches away, that's in the hole, that's outside of the kick drum. So you already have a distance variation, and you've got a different microphone, different location, and right off the bat, you have an offset that is going to cause you some kind of phase cancellation in when you combine the two mics. So the process that I go through is to always make each one of those inputs sound the best on their own first. Get the Beta 91 to sound great. Find its center lower frequency that sounds best in the PA. Highlight that frequency. Get a little attack going on the top, but get that mic to sound great on its own. Turn it off. Turn up the outside mic. Get that one to sound great. And then when you start to combine the two microphones, this is where you may find that there's some cancellation in the lower frequencies. Okay, well, what are your options at this point? The first thing I like to mention is you can use the polarity switch. You can try that. In the olden golden days of audio, that was your only option. You had a polarity switch, and if you want to go back even further, we didn't even have that. We had no options really at that point. You used one mic or the other. You didn't ever combine them. But the polarity switch is kind of the first go-to. You're going to find right away it's either going to make it much better or much worse. If it makes it better, I would say that's a good starting point. If it makes it worse, I definitely say, go back to not using the polarity switch. But the other tool at your disposal is the input delay. I usually always do the inside kick drum because I feel that's the one you're going to want to move back in line with the outside kick drum mic. And then I'll start to just move that input delay until I get those two mics to sound good together, better than one on its own, better than the other one on its own. The two together, the sum of those two is the better combination than one on their own. But that is often a problem with bass and a bass mic, or maybe a condenser mic on the guitar cabinet with a SM57. I often see engineers combine those two things, but they don't pay attention to giving a little twist to the input delay to get those things to line up, and there'll be some phase cancellation in the mid range or the low mid, and there'll be some problems that come from that. I'm going to move on now to creating space in the mix. This is a question I get often. Is I've got great sounding guitars, I got a lot of keyboards. Now almost every show that's out there has a lot of tracks. That has become a problem with lots and lots of tracks. Everything is cluttered. How do I get more space in my mix? And the tools that I like to use are the high pass filter, panning, and effects. And effects might seem to be an odd one because, hey, if it's already kind of muddy, how do you use effects to actually give you more space? But it really is a kind of a good trick for this. So high pass filter, it's one of those things that if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Muddy sounding instruments, sometimes drums, sometimes low end on keyboards and guitars can really cloud the whole bottom end of the mix. So wisely using your high pass filter to clean up some of the lower end of some of the instruments will really help you to clean things up and create some space. Panning is a great tool to just pull things out of the middle a little bit, keep your vocal, your snare drum, your kick drum much more prominent in the mix. Panning can be a problem if you have a very wide audience. Obviously, you can't take the acoustic guitar and put it just way over there. If the acoustic guitar player's mother is sitting way over there, you can't do that. You have to use some judgment in how wide you pan things, but it does help to separate things, and is a tool that can be used. Effects. This is where I like to use effects. Sometimes, let's say you have 6 vocalists. This is something that works really well in house of worship. You'll have all these vocalists, and you want the lead vocalist to stand out, but effects on the background vocals, a little chorus or harmonizing, and a little bit of reverb, and even a little sort of duller EQ, take a little high end off them and add some effects, and then it helps to sync them back in the mix a little bit, and it helps the lead vocal to stick out a little bit, and a little panning and effects pulls those things back, gives you a little more space for the things that you want to stick out. So
You know what, Jim? While you're on
yes,
that,
yeah.
will you explain what that means by creating space in the mix, just on a very basic level? What does it mean to create more space?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes, you have these 2 big speaker clusters, and you have side speakers, and you have this huge audience, and even if you're just sitting there with your AirPods on and you're listening to music at home, you have this space from here to here to hear everything in a song, and especially when you have a lot of instrumentation, like 2 guitars, 2 keyboards, tracks, it can get really busy. And sometimes it just seems like, I wanted to hear that little guitar riff, but I didn't because it got covered up by a keyboard thing. So space meaning, you have to sort of pick and choose. This was actually going into the next thing I was going to talk about, which is subtractive mixing. Sometimes you have to pick and choose when you hear things in a mix, and that's a lot of times in this new busier world of all the tracks and all the layers and everything we have in songs now. Sometimes you have to create a nice basis, a big thick backbone to the song, and then you have to pull some things back and let that little acoustic thing jump up for a sec and then pull it back. And so yeah, it can be difficult to especially things like strings and guitars and tracks that have string samples, like all of those things are layering over top of each other, and it is sometimes hard to have enough space for the vocal. Sometimes a lead vocal will get buried by everything else that's going on, so you just have to find a way to either pull that stuff out of the center with some panning, leave the vocal in the center by itself. So that's
Fascinating. Thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah,
Dumbing
sure.
it down a little bit for someone who knows nothing. So thank you.
Great.
Keep on going.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say is when I first started to learn about frequencies, and I got very obsessed with trying to always guess the exact frequency of something. And this was kind of important because when I learned to be a monitor engineer, everything was wedges and side fills. When a vocal mic would feed back, you kind of had to be exactly on with what frequency was that? Was that 2K that fed back, or was that 4K that fed back? Because you wanted to pull that down on the graphic equalizer so that it wouldn't feed back again. So I felt like in the beginning I was a lot more frequency specific, and I have learned over time that I try to teach this a lot more, is to try to think in broader strokes with frequencies as you're learning to be a mix engineer. Just basically, like when you hear a guitar coming through a PA for the first time, and you're doing your line check through the PA, what's your immediate mindset? Is it do you immediately go, it's too bright, there's too many highs, there's not enough lows, and there's just the right amount of mids? Like, can your ears judge that right away without looking over at Smart or some kind of frequency analyzer? Can you immediately say, yep, I need to turn the highs down, turn the lows up, or give it a little more mids and roll the highs off? I like to try to teach the students that I work with to just have a low, mid, and high sort of sensor as far as frequencies go. Just try to hear them in those three broad strokes as you're learning how to build a mix. Don't get caught up in thinking, well, there's too much 250 and I need to pull some 4K down in that guitar. I think it's wider than that when you're just getting started. Once you kind of got your whole mix going and everything is sounding pretty good, okay, then go in there and make a couple more direct tweaks and stuff. But I can put a mix together of 40 inputs pretty quickly just by doing some wider, quick EQ across the board. And that sort of leads into this next one, which is building a mix fast. I don't know if you've ever been around an engineer who, you've been struggling with this, the sound check or whatever with this band, and maybe you're newer to mixing than someone that you really respect or that you've heard a lot about, and you say, hey, what is it? Why am I struggling so much with this? Would you mind jumping in and showing me a few things? And that person kind of goes, blah, 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 and within 10 minutes, it sounds amazing. And you're wondering, what am I missing? And often the thing is that they are undoing some of the things that you've done. And this is sort of the whole crux of what I'm teaching here today is, wait on effects, wait on compression, wait on processing of just about any kind until you do the fundamental things. I did a little experiment with some students at NewSpring Church, and I called it the oh gosh, I forgot the name now. The 10 channel challenge. So there was a 30 channel session, and I said, you get to pick 10 channels, you get 5 minutes, and the only thing you get to adjust is the gain, the high pass filter, and the fader. That's the only thing you get to touch. Put a mix together. And most of them grabbed the kick, the snare, the guitar, the bass, and the vocal, and they all did it. It all sounded great, and they weren't allowed to use any compression, any EQ, any effects, anything. Just grab the input gain, set it, turn the fader up, put some high pass filter on, and turn it up in the PA, and you would be amazed how great things really do sound when you just have a great sounding guitar and you turn it up in a great sounding sound system. So I like to really encourage people to move the microphone a little bit, or maybe tune the snare drum a little bit more before you start throwing a plug-in on there, or going crazy with EQ or compression or all of that. And the people who know me, my friends, the people who I tour with, know that I live this. I'm a very, very straight ahead fundamentals kind of guy. And so I I really encourage you to try this. And as the spirit of the mentorship program, if you want to do some one-on-one with me in the future and learn some more sort of direct questions and some techniques and processes, I'll be glad to do that with you.
That was fabulous. Another silent round of applause for Jim, everybody. Yes. And
Thank
snaps.
you.
Fabulous. Okay, I have Jenny is going to be pinning people up or spotlighting people if you have some questions. I want to just start with the question as everyone kind of gathers their thoughts. Can I ask a couple definitions? And I know we have some audio pros in here, but just for anyone who's not in audio, a couple super basic questions based on what you were saying. Number one, why do you use pink noise to figure out what? Like, what is that for?
Pink noise sends let's call it an equal amount of energy from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, which is a sort of our full range we can hear from the lowest to the highest frequencies, based on the way our ear likes to hear things. Like we like to hear things with that little tilt I was talking about. We all like to hear things. The Fletcher Munson curves like to tell us that we like our ear hears highs better than lows. So the way we sort of like to hear our sound systems is with more lows than highs, and that's what sounds comfortable to us. So pink noise is kind of noise that is tailored to when you send it out into the sound system, and you balance your sound system with pink noise. You start turning instruments up into that, it's gonna give you the goal you're looking for.
That's really cool to hear because I sleep with brown noise. That's the lower.
Okay.
I enjoy that sound.
I'm gonna have to try that.
It's lovely. And then can you just explain distortion and clipping?
Okay. Trying to think of a good example. Well, interestingly enough, it's used often as an effect. I mean, a lot of tracks that I've heard lately, it's a cool effect when someone's singing and it's all clean and crisp and sounding real cool, and then all of a sudden it just sounds like they're singing through a Marshall amp. It's like super distorted and overdriven. These are kind of synonyms for distortion,
Yes.
but hopefully
Yep.
that it's just kind of crunchy and fuzzy, and that's distortion. And obviously, the Marshall electric guitar sound, from Jimi Hendrix on and everyone else, that is what is pleasing to our ears for an electric guitar, is a distorted sound. Clipping is kind of a harsh, a quickly hitting sort of the end of the amplified, the threshold of how loud it can get. And so I'm trying to think of an example of where you might hear this, but in like when you clip a channel on a console, sometimes it'll just go, it'll just make a really loud and awful sound because you have just gone way louder than you should have gone. It's distortion can be very nice and warm and fuzzy, and a clip is an audible snap or a clip. It's not a very pleasant thing. We don't want that.
Copy that. If you have a question right now, go ahead and put your hand up. You can do that reaction. And then again, Ginny will come to you and spotlight you. I will keep asking questions if no one else has a question. So you mentioned DB and polarity switch. I know I'm sorry, I'm
Okay.
getting into the weeds here, but just to kind of explain, and then we'll throw it over to Giacomo and then Nick. So, you know
Okay.
what?
DB, yeah, DB is a unit of measurement. It is used in a variety of ways. There's electrical measurement using dBu and again, like I am the practical audio guy. My electrical engineering skills sort of disappeared after the first 10 years of being an audio guy. But what we deal with most in live audio is dB SPL. So when you talk about it's sound pressure level. So when you talk about something being, a show, I went to a show and it was 100 dB. That's 100 decibels SPL. But within the console, there's a lot of electrical measurements happening in dB. So
Thank you.
yeah, but it's short for decibel. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And we could throw it
And
to
then what was the other one?
sorry, I forgot. Polarity switch.
Polarity switch. Yeah. So yeah, as a sine wave is going, it's going up and then it goes down. So if you have two sine waves going side by side, they're in polarity with each other.
Oh.
Okay. So if you have two bass drums and they're in perfect polarity, you hit the bass drum, they both go like this at the same time. If you invert the polarity of one of them, one goes up and one goes down. And so what happens is there will be mostly low frequency cancellation because they are very low frequency instruments. So when the polarity switch really helps a lot on something like a bass guitar or a kick drum on the console. When you have two kick drums and you're adding them together and you flip that polarity switch, you will hear instantly if it really made a great difference for the better or for the worse. And then the delay switch it's actually it's a delay knob, and it adds milliseconds of time, which is a thousandth of a second. But as you spin it up, you will hear it's really pretty incredible. Like you will hear the kick drum, the drum tech or the drummers hitting the kick drum, and you start moving the thing up, and you get to 2 milliseconds, 3 milliseconds, 4 milliseconds. All of a sudden, that kick drum comes perfectly in line. Those two mics are right in line with each other, and you got this awesome walloping kick drum that sounds amazing. And 4 thousandths of a second was what it needed to do that. So
wow, thank you for doing that. So we'll do Giacomo,
sure.
Nick, and then Jeremy.
Thank you so much. So first of all, hi Jim, nice to meet you. It's such a great
Hey,
pleasure.
Giacomo.
Hi, thank you so much for such an outstanding masterclass, and thank you so much always to Nikki and the rest of the Geeks Live team for making it happen. So I have a couple of questions for you, if it's possible.
Sure.
The first one is, do the different type of music that they have to support? For example, a sound system for a rock concert and a country concert is different. Maybe you need different skills also to work in such different concerts, for example. And the other one is, speaking of new technologies, what do you see in the future of sound systems?
Oh, ask the second part again.
So yeah, speaking of the technologies, what do you see in the future of sound systems?
Well, I really like the immersive audio. I'd like to see more of it touring, but it seems to be still not something that enough bands. I think it's still has to be just embraced more by the industry. More people
Okay.
have to. I think it's an amazing thing for the audience, and more artists that have, the engineer and the artist. I saw, I didn't see Lorde, but she took it out on tour years ago,
Oh,
and
okay.
I was able to mix Gwen Stefani at
Oh, yeah.
Resorts World in Vegas
Oh,
on that
okay.
huge immersive sound system, and it was very, very cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have enough time to go in and program all the stuff and maybe have some rear speakers where you have some things happening, I think it would be an amazing experience for the audience.
Absolutely.
But there's only 16 hours in a day to unload the trucks, set everything
Yeah.
up, and it still has to be embraced by the production people and everyone, and be cost effective. So
Yeah, for sure, would create such an outstanding and unforgettable, moment and concert itself. Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. Did you have another question too, or?
Yeah, the first one is, do the type or different type of music that
Yeah.
the sound system have to support. I don't know, for example, for a rock concert, for a country concert, maybe you need different sound systems. You need maybe different skills in order, to work in such different concerts or events.
Yeah, I think, well, honestly, I think country has really become very, very close to rock concerts
Yeah,
now.
if you speak of party, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, but classical or orchestra, something like Sarah McLachlan or Nora Jones, like
Oh,
very
yeah.
quiet. Um, I absolutely love the new sound systems with cardioid sound systems like L2 and GSL, KSL, where there's cancellation behind the sound system for the more delicate acts. I think that's a huge step forward. So I think with those kind of bands, the approach is very different. But a lot of the bands that I've worked with over the years, I think the approach is quite similar. Just good control of feedback, and making sure a lot of the things I mentioned, good gain structure and good
Okay.
control of the frequency spectrum. So and trying not to be too loud to make everything crazy if it's a quieter show.
Yeah, I mean, it could be different. Maybe if we speak of artists like Lizzie McAlpine, could be
Yeah,
maybe a more different sound system than the Pearl Jam, Metallica are totally
right.
different one. But you have to just adjust in base of the band or the artist. Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
The
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are putting up Nick.
Hey, Jim, we appreciate you coming on for this. I'd love to hear your thoughts, kind of a big question, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of your start into the pro audio industry, kind of where you're seeing modern day, how everything's kind of playing out for those getting started or those kind of navigating the waters. Obviously, the irony of my question is that's why gigs exist, I guess. So, which is rad, but I would love to hear your thoughts on kind of how you got started, what you could share to those of us that are jumping into the industry in more of a live sound touring aspect. And then I'd love for you to touch, if you can, on, COVID changed the game on a lot of things, Nashville,
Mhm.
LA, and New York being the kind of the hubs where people were getting picked up. But obviously the world's changed a lot. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all that.
Yeah. I started in '81, working in Western Canada and Vancouver area in the Western Canadian bar circuit. And yeah, it was a great place to work back then. It was very, very really, really a supportive system. There was lots of places to play. We were working just about every day. We didn't have to have 2 or 3 jobs. we could just be sound engineers and musicians, and it was great. And then I was lucky enough to come down and start working in the States in 1986, and I eventually got a green card and was able to stay here and tour. But yeah, I'm so happy to see that the industry is back after COVID. We were all so tentative at first to see if it was really going to come back, and I think it has. And I think we've had a bit of a bubble since then, and maybe it's settling back down a little bit. But I'm so encouraged that I still think that, everyone just wants to go and see live music all the time. And I just think there's room for touring and, all of us just to keep working for a long, long time.
True that. I love that. Go ahead. Awesome.
No,
All right, Jeremy.
Hey, Jim, how's it going, bud?
Hey, what's up, Jeremy?
Hey, thank you for doing this class. I always learn something anytime I have a conversation with you. I appreciate it, bud. Hey, so my question is, you were talking about the gain structure, which I know a lot of times people treat it as a simple concept, but there's so many different theories out there on setting your gain structure. And honestly, with somebody that's, I say, new into this industry, it gets kind of confusing because you try to pull from different people and apply things that you learn. I know you mentioned the -18 for nominal gain on a digital console. Does that apply to all digital consoles? Or is that just a generic number? Or do you usually just use your ear to see how it sounds when you're setting your gain?
Well, I know like the Yamaha platform, that was kind of their number was -18 was sort of their zero analog, on their metering and stuff like that. I know doing a lot of corporate stuff, we would go back to the video guys and set our levels for their record machines, and some were like -20 or some were -22, and so it is a little hard to nail down an exact number. Like I could send 0 dB out of my console back to these machines, and where their green light or their green to yellow, where it would turn, show them that they were getting their zero, their optimum level would be different on all these machines. So it is worth studying more. I just know that like on the old analog console, on an old Midas analog console, where it says 0, that's analog 0, and that equates on a Yamaha console to -18.
Gotcha.
I know that Avid consoles, they call 00, where I think I want to say Digico still goes by -18 as well. So it's
Gotcha.
yeah, but yeah, it's sort of something, as you're learning the console, you'll sort of see as it's summing to the master bus, you'll definitely see how all the, as you're setting all your levels, the indicators, green to yellow to red, will help you along. I actually got caught with this on SSL a little bit because the way their green to yellow goes was a little strange to me, and I was hitting everything a little bit too hard on the input levels, and I had to back everything down. And then I realized that -18 was correct. It's just that it was the yellow was further up the mark or whatever. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So yeah. Yeah, I think you just have to you have to sort of use your ears, use your common sense, see how it's summing to the master. But you can always go to their support page and do some reading on where they call their zero, their analog zero. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate you, buddy, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, you bet, Jeremy. Thanks for asking the question and tuning in today.
Absolutely, buddy. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.
I have a final question here.
Okay.
In case anyone doesn't have a question. Yes, my question is going more into the artists that you've worked for. You've worked for legends, Journey, Van Halen, more recently Gwen Stefani, no doubt. What has been your most favorite exciting music to work with? And a follow-up to that is, do you need to know the song before you start mixing so you know what to bring up?
Yes, I never kind of made it to point number 8 on my thing here. So once again, Nikki teeing me up with the right question here. Yes, study the music. Yes, know it so well. Like, especially with rock bands, who still like to do guitar solos or have a cool little keyboard thing that jumps out of the mix for a sec. Part of that little thing I was talking about with subtractive mixing is knowing when to excite the crowd with a quick little push of a piece of the music and then pulling it back again, and then the lead vocals back in there again, and then it's like there's this cool background vocal thing that needs to jump out. Like, think about Queen, the way they had background vocal things that would just jump out of the mix for a second, then settle back in. That is exciting mixing. That is the stuff that gets the crowd like super pumped. And so you have to know the songs to do that. So when I get hired by an artist, the first thing that I do, aside from asking for a recent multi-track session, which is like, hey, they just did a show last week and here's a recording and all the tracks are separated, and now I can go to my little home recording studio and start listening to the tracks live. But I also listen to the songs. I start making notes. I know who starts the song. This guitar player starts this one, or this keyboard player. I know where there's like shakers, where there's acoustic guitar, accents. I learn all that stuff before I ever show up the first day. So I know what, and plus, the vibe of the song, if it's supposed to be sort of a instrument heavy song, or, I mean, think about, the song Don't Speak by No Doubt. It's, it's such a vibey song. There's a little cello part that happens in this second verse. It's so important. And so you just have to know that stuff to mix it properly.
That's really cool to hear. So prep is a big deal in the.
That's right.
And Cole asked a great question. And this is fun. This is a fun question. What is one of the best shows that you've ever seen live that you attended, not worked?
Wow, that is a great question.
And I'm sure part of this answer has to do with the quality of the front of house engineer. If you're, especially you are in tune to what you're hearing in the audience.
Yeah. Gosh, that's such a good question. Some of my heroes I never got to see, unfortunately, but I used to be a total metalhead, and I got to see Queensryche back in like 1984 or something, and Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, and I got to see all those guys. I'm trying to think more recently though who I got to see that was so amazing, and that's terrible that
it's hard. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you did, but I will say this: last year at Coachella doing No Doubt, that was by far the funnest thing I have done in 20 years. That was the greatest couple shows. It was 2 shows. It was like one weekend and the next weekend, and it was over. But they were so good, and it was so fun. That was such a huge honor.
Why was it one of the best for you?
Well, I think the energy they had have not played together for, I think it was 9 years they hadn't played together. And I had worked with Gwen, so like I had, been around her playing their songs and stuff, but then to hear them play and the hunger of the crowd and that many people, like to hear the reception from the crowd was just unbelievable. And yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I was, the guy getting to mix the show and being the absolute fan at the same time. So it was
Well, and
great.
that's why I always say, everyone who is at a concert is an artist and is a part of the show. Even the audience is part of the show, the energy they're giving, they're participating. But, everyone, especially working the tour, working the music, not just the instruments and the singing, but everyone backstage is absolutely an artist and working a part of it and putting in your own creativity to it. So thank you, Jim, so much. Will our gigs team please put the link one more time in the chat right here to book one-on-one sessions with Jim. And we are going to send a follow-up email with the recording of this to anyone that wasn't able to make it, if you ever want to watch it again. And Jim, thank you so much for your time here. This was really, really just fascinating. I learned a lot.
Cool.
And if anyone else has any other questions, book that one-on-one with Jim, and we'll be back with the next Mentor Masterclass soon.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.